If you've ever woken up in the morning and felt like your body aged 10 years overnight, you're not alone. Maybe your knees protest when you stand up. Maybe your fingers feel tight and stubborn when you try to open a jar. Or perhaps the stairs you once climbed without thinking now require a steady hand on the railing. Here's what most people assume. It's just aging. But here's where it gets fascinating. What if some of that stiffness isn't simply about the number of candles on your birthday cake? What if part of it is happening quietly, at the cellular level, influenced by something as simple as what's on your plate? Today, we're talking about a food that research suggests may help support joint health and reduce stiffness naturally. And the surprising part, it's probably not the one you're thinking of. Before we go any further, I want you to understand something very important. This isn't about miracle cures or internet health trends. Joint pain is serious. Stiffness affects mobility, independence, and overall quality of life, especially after 60. And when we talk about supporting your joints, we need to ground it in real science. Institutions like Harvard University have published extensive research on the role of chronic inflammation in aging. The Mayo Clinic has repeatedly emphasized how diet can influence inflammatory pathways linked to arthritis and joint degeneration. And perhaps most fascinating of all, long-term studies of older adults in Japan, one of the longest living populations in the world, show that dietary patterns rich in specific anti-inflammatory and collagen-supporting foods are strongly associated with mobility preservation well into advanced age. Here's the key idea. Joints don't just wear out. They respond to their environment. Inflammation levels, oxidative stress, nutrient availability. All of these factors influence how your cartilage behaves and how stiff you feel. Modern rheumatology research now confirms that certain foods can either fuel inflammation or help calm it. Some nutrients directly support cartilage structure. Others influence the fluid inside your joints that keeps them moving smoothly. This isn't about replacing medical care. It's about giving your body the raw materials it needs to function at its best. And once you understand what's really happening inside your joints, everything changes. Let's clear up one of the biggest myths about getting older. Joint stiffness is not simply the result of too many birthdays. If that were true, everyone the same age would feel the same level of discomfort. But we both know that's not how it works. Some 75-year-olds move with surprising ease, while others begin struggling in their late 50s. So what's the difference? Here's where the science gets fascinating. Inside your joints is a smooth, rubbery tissue called cartilage. Its job is to cushion the ends of your bones so they glide over each other without friction. But cartilage doesn't have its own blood supply. It relies on surrounding tissues and nutrients delivered through movement and circulation to stay healthy. Over time, three major things can interfere with that process. First, chronic low-grade inflammation. Researchers at Harvard University have described this as inflammaging, a slow-burning inflammatory state that increases as we grow older. This inflammation can gradually break down cartilage and irritate joint linings. Second, oxidative stress. Think of it as cellular rust. Free radicals damage the proteins and structural components inside cartilage. Without enough antioxidant support, this damage accumulates. Third, reduced production of collagen. Collagen is the primary structural protein in cartilage. After age 50, natural collagen production declines significantly. Less collagen means less resilience and cushioning inside the joint. But here's the hopeful part. All three of these factors are influenced by lifestyle, especially diet. Certain foods can increase inflammatory markers. Others actively reduce them. Some provide the exact amino acids and compounds your body uses to maintain cartilage structure. This might sound simple, but the science is remarkable. Your joints are constantly remodeling themselves. They're not frozen in time. They respond to what you give them, which means stiffness is not always a one-way street. Now let's look at the first food that research suggests can help support healthier, more comfortable joints. This one surprises a lot of people. When we think about joint health, we usually picture supplements or oils, not a small bowl of berries. But researchers have discovered that some of the most powerful defenders of cartilage may be hiding in deeply colored fruits like blueberries, strawberries, and blackberries. Here's why. Berries are rich in compounds called anthocyanins. These are the natural pigments that give them their vibrant red, blue, and purple colors. But they're not just pretty. Anthocyanins are potent antioxidants, and antioxidants play a critical role in protecting joint tissue from oxidative stress, that cellular rust we talked about earlier. Oxidative stress damages collagen fibers inside cartilage. Over time, this contributes to stiffness and decreased flexibility. Studies referenced by researchers at Harvard University have shown that diets high in antioxidant-rich fruits are associated with lower inflammatory markers in the body. But here's where it gets even more interesting. Berries don't just neutralize free radicals. Some studies suggest they may reduce inflammatory cytokines, the chemical messengers that signal swelling and pain inside joints. In other words, they may help calm the internal fire that contributes to stiffness. If you've ever noticed your joints feel worse after periods periods of poor eating. This may be part of the reason. Diets high in processed sugars and refined carbohydrates increase inflammation. Replacing even one sugary snack with antioxidant-rich berries can begin shifting that balance. And this doesn't require dramatic changes. A handful of blueberries with breakfast, sliced strawberries over plain yogurt, a small bowl of mixed berries in the evening instead of dessert. It sounds simple, almost too simple. But most people overlook this, yet researchers continue to find that small, consistent dietary choices create measurable changes in inflammatory markers over time. Berries alone won't rebuild cartilage, but they help protect what you still have. And when it comes to joint preservation after 60, protection is powerful. Now let's move to the next food, one that works from a completely different angle. Now we move from antioxidants to something even more directly tied to joint inflammation: omega-3 fatty acids. If you've ever heard your doctor talk about heart health and fish oil, this is part of that same conversation. But what many people don't realize is that omega-3s also play a profound role in how your joints feel day to day. Fatty fish like salmon, sardines, mackerel, and trout are rich in EPA and DHA, two specific types of omega-3 fatty acids that have been widely studied for their anti-inflammatory effects. According to clinical findings frequently referenced by the Mayo Clinic, omega-3s help reduce the production of inflammatory compounds in the body. And here's why that matters for your knees, hips, and hands. Inside stiff or arthritic joints, inflammatory chemicals called cytokines signal swelling and discomfort. Omega-3 fatty acids can help shift the balance away from these pro-inflammatory signals. Over time, this may contribute to reduced morning stiffness and improved joint tenderness. But the real surprise was this: omega-3s may also influence the fluid inside your joints. Your joints are lined with a membrane that produces synovial fluid, a thick, slippery substance that acts like oil in an engine. Inflammatory stress can degrade the quality of that fluid. Omega-3 intake has been associated with improved joint lubrication and reduced joint tenderness in several observational studies. If you've ever felt like your joints just don't glide the way they used to, this could be part of the reason. Populations that consume fish regularly, particularly in coastal regions and parts of Japan, consistently show lower rates of inflammatory joint conditions compared to heavily processed Western diets. This doesn't mean you need fish every day. Even 2 servings per week of fatty fish can meaningfully increase omega-3 levels in your bloodstream. And here's something encouraging: dietary changes can influence inflammatory markers within weeks, not years. Small, steady intake, gradual reduction in inflammatory load, better joint environment. Now let's move to a food that works in a completely different way, by helping protect the structure of your cartilage itself. Now, this is where joint protection becomes more structural. Leafy greens like spinach, kale, Swiss chard, and collard greens may not seem directly connected to your knees or hips, but deep inside those dark green leaves are nutrients that play a surprisingly important role in maintaining cartilage integrity. One of the most important is vitamin K. Vitamin K is often associated with blood clotting, but researchers have uncovered another powerful function. It helps regulate calcium distribution in the body. Without adequate vitamin K, calcium can deposit in places it doesn't belong, including joint tissues, contributing to stiffness and reduced flexibility. Studies supported by research institutions such as Harvard University suggest that low vitamin K levels are associated with increased risk of cartilage damage and osteoarthritis progression. In simple terms, insufficient intake may leave your joints more vulnerable over time. But vitamin K isn't the only player. Leafy greens are also rich in antioxidants like lutein and beta-carotene, which help neutralize oxidative stress. Remember that cellular rust we discussed earlier? These compounds help reduce that burden, protecting the collagen framework inside your joints. And here's where it gets fascinating. Leafy greens also provide magnesium, a mineral that supports muscle relaxation and nerve signaling. Tight, chronically tense muscles around a joint can increase pressure and worsen stiffness. Adequate magnesium intake may help reduce that tension, indirectly easing joint strain. Most people don't think of greens as joint food. They think of them as diet food. But in many long-lived populations, including older adults studied in Japan, daily vegetable consumption is a cornerstone habit, not an occasional side dish. The key isn't massive servings, it's consistency. A cup of sautéed spinach with dinner, a handful of kale blended into a smoothie, mixed greens layered into lunch. It might not feel dramatic. You won't notice overnight changes. But cartilage protection is a long game, and leafy greens quietly provide nutrients that help defend it from gradual breakdown. Now we move to something even more concentrated, a staple of one of the world's healthiest dietary patterns: If there is one ingredient that consistently appears in longevity research, it's olive oil. Not margarine, not vegetable shortening, not heavily processed seed oils, extra virgin olive oil. In the traditional Mediterranean diet, one of the most studied dietary patterns in the world, olive oil is the primary fat source, and populations following this pattern show lower rates of inflammatory diseases, including joint degeneration. Here's why this matters. Extra virgin olive oil contains a natural compound called oleocanthal. What makes oleocanthal fascinating is that it works in a way remarkably similar to ibuprofen. Researchers have found that it can inhibit certain inflammatory enzymes in the body, specifically COX enzymes, which are directly involved in pain and swelling pathways. The Mayo Clinic has discussed how monounsaturated fats, like those in olive oil, can help reduce inflammatory markers when they replace saturated or processed fats in the diet. But here's where it gets even more interesting. Olive oil doesn't just reduce inflammation. It may help protect cartilage cells themselves. Laboratory studies suggest that the polyphenols in high-quality olive oil can reduce oxidative damage inside joint tissues, helping maintain cartilage integrity over time. If your current diet relies heavily on butter, fried foods, or processed snacks, simply swapping those fats for extra virgin olive oil could shift your internal inflammatory balance. This might sound subtle, but inflammation is cumulative. A small reduction, sustained daily, compounds over months and years. In regions surrounding the Mediterranean Sea, and in dietary studies often cited by institutions like Harvard University, olive oil isn't used sparingly. It's drizzled over vegetables, mixed into legumes, and used as a finishing oil for fish and whole grains. And here's the hopeful part. You don't need a complete diet overhaul. Even replacing one daily source of processed fat with extra virgin olive oil begins nudging your joints toward a calmer internal environment. We've now covered antioxidants, omega-3s, structural nutrients, and anti-inflammatory fats. But the next food addresses something even deeper. It supports the very building blocks of cartilage itself. Now we come to the one food most people overlook, yet it may directly support the very structure of your joints. Collagen-rich bone broth. This might sound old-fashioned. In fact, it is. Long before supplements lined pharmacy shelves, traditional cultures simmered bones for hours to extract something incredibly valuable. Collagen, gelatin, and amino acids that serve as raw materials for connective tissue. Here's why this matters so much after 60. Your cartilage is made primarily of collagen, specifically type 2 collagen. Beginning in midlife, your body's natural collagen production steadily declines. That means your joints are trying to maintain cushioning and resilience with fewer building blocks available. Bone broth contains collagen that breaks down into gelatin and smaller peptides during cooking. Once consumed, your body absorbs these amino acids, including glycine and proline, which are essential for rebuilding connective tissues. But here's where it gets fascinating. Clinical studies on collagen supplementation have shown improvements in joint comfort and reductions in stiffness over time, especially in older adults with mild osteoarthritis. While bone broth isn't identical to concentrated collagen supplements, it provides similar structural nutrients in a whole food form. Researchers often referenced by institutions such as Mayo Clinic emphasize that maintaining connective tissue requires adequate protein intake, something many older adults unknowingly fall short on. Bone broth offers a gentle, digestible source, and there's more. Slow-cooked broth also releases minerals like calcium, magnesium, and phosphorus, nutrients that support bone strength and joint stability. It's not just about cushioning, it's about the entire joint environment. In traditional Japanese and Mediterranean diets, long-simmered soups and stews are staples, and these cultures are frequently studied for longevity and mobility preservation. This might sound simple, but the science is remarkable. You are literally giving your body the raw ingredients it uses to maintain cartilage. A warm cup in the evening, using broth as a base for soups, cooking grains in it instead of water. It's not flashy, it's not trendy, but when it comes to supporting the foundation of your joints, collagen-rich foods may be the most powerful ally on this list. Now let's bring everything together. If you've been living with stiffness, it's easy to feel like your joints are slowly slipping out of your control. But here's the truth most people never hear. Your joints are dynamic. They respond to what you feed them. Berries help defend against oxidative stress. Fatty fish calm inflammatory signals. Leafy greens protect cartilage integrity. Olive oil lowers inflammatory load. And collagen-rich bone broth provides the structural building blocks your joints depend on. None of these foods work overnight. This isn't about instant relief. It's about gradually changing the internal environment your joints live in. Lower inflammation, better lubrication, stronger connective tissue support. Most people look for a single pill, but the real power is daily consistency. If you begin adding even 2 or 3 of these foods into your weekly routine, you're no longer passively aging. You're actively supporting mobility, flexibility, and independence. And when it comes to staying strong after 60, that's everything. Subscribe now and join us as we uncover more science-backed secrets to staying strong, mobile, and independent at any age.